afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TraderMerlin Show. It is your Friday edition, the weekend edition, the wrap-up, the crescendo to a volatile week. I am going to cheers everybody out there, whether you are drinking a beverage or not. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm going with Jefferson's. What do I got today? Jefferson's Reserve. It's a old school looking funky, cool little bottle, but that's my sauce du jour. So cheers. Hoorah. And by the way, Slide Dog says, I'm getting up soon in the morning. Believe I'll dust my broom. What is it? It's either Robert Johnson or Elmore James. I think Elmore James is the one who originally did it, but Robert Johnson covered that one. I think I'll dust my broom. Anyway, happy Friday, everybody. Good to see you, Les, Ricardo, Tomasina, Joaquim, Ivan, and Slide Dog. I'm sure we'll have others joining us. I know Tom won't. He's at an all-day workshop today, so we won't see it. Maybe a lighter day today. It's all good. I got some fun stuff to discuss. As you can see by the graphic here, I went with kind of a jubilation, happy theme. You notice the hands. This is all AI generated, and they're almost all pretty good except for the guys in the back. This guy's got 4 fingers, and this guy's got a little bit of a nub here, but it's better than what it used to be, and I kind of fit my face in there. It looked like I actually almost fit in to this picture of jubilation. So anyway, I hope you're doing as good as these folks here and had yourself a great trading week. So let's see. As far as the week goes, a quick rundown. I don't know which trades I know we've talked about a few of my trades that I've had open. You guys know, I'll start with my trade wrap up. How about that? So Budweiser. You guys know I wrote that article for barchart.com, which I need to get a new one out there soon because I have been just so busy I haven't gotten to it. But I had this yellow demand zone as my buy point. So when it was up here around 58, I sold the 55 puts, collected some very nice premium, and then it actually went all the way down to 52 and change, call it 53, and then started to rip out of there. So long term, I'm still bullish on Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser for obvious reasons. I think that that's pretty good. But my options expired worthless today, so great. You know, I collected all that premium and didn't have to do anything for it. So Bud, I was done with. The one that I was really kind of kicking myself on is what happened with XLB. I sold the 75 XLBs. And again, I got some really good premium, but God, I just wish I would have bought building materials. I kind of felt like that would be an area that's going to start to do good as for the summer. So there you go. I love the chat over here. Just for the summer rally construction, I thought materials would probably do rather well, and boy, it's just ripping. Although, you notice building materials coming right up into that high that we saw from back in April of this year, so may see a little bit of resistance there. What else did I have? I had XLF. And again, all of these expired worthless. So I sold these a while back last month, you know, as we finished out the options expiration last month. And I ended up selling, I think, the 31s, or I think I sold the 31s on this. Again, all expiring worthless. I had XLK. The only ones that got me this week, there were 2 that got me this week. So they weren't losses. But here's SLV. As you guys know, I mentioned I had the $22 strikes. I had sold the calls on those. I've been collecting premium on them for a while, so sold the calls, and all of mine went away at 22. I have another account I didn't look at. I think I might actually have some 2250s, but all of mine in my main account went away today at $22, which is fine because I still collected way more than 18 cents worth of premium over the past couple of months. So all in all, love silver. It's been doing great for me with the option from the option side of things. Don't really have too many underliers. The only underlier I'm holding right now, I went through my accounts, UNG, which I sold calls on UNG today. So I decided to go long on natural gas about a week and a half ago, and I was like, you know what, I know it's not going to get too much lower, especially when you look at the natural gas futures kind of teetering around that $2 mark. So I ended up selling the $8, which is up here in this red line. And I sold those $8 calls expiring next month. So I got 30 days for it to get there. Either way, it'll be fine. I'll make some good money, collected some good premium. I collected, I think it was 36 cents per share for that. So that'll be an extra 36 cents if it even gets to $8. So just running through some of the trades that expired out there today. The only loser I've had well, not the only loser, but the one that I've been conveying to you was this bad boy here. This was the triple Qs. I told you my stop loss was 373. You can see here today we got to 372.85, but I also put a secondary condition that was I wanted to be out by the end of day today. I bought the the short-term options, which is kind of a risky to do. I plan on this being a short-term trade, as I thought that Thursday and Friday would be down days. That's why I ended up buying those put options. Of course, Thursday we continued to rally, and on Friday, slight down day, but just not doing what I thought it was going to do. So I dumped that one because I have next Friday expiration on those triple Qs. So anyway, that's a rundown of some of the things, trades that I had open here. The loss on the triple Q was about $600. So unfortunate, don't want to lose that kind of money, but make up for it with the bigger positions, which were Anheuser-Busch, XLB, XLF, XLK. So there you go. Finally, out of all my tech positions, we'll see if it was a good decision. GS33. Well, let's start there and just work our way through these numbers. I will sort these right here. I'm going to go to the NASDAQ, which the futures show it down 0.55%. I really do think you're going to see that pullback. It just, unfortunately, it hasn't come, and I took a stab at it, right? I put my rules in place, and I said, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. No problem. I have no problem admitting I'm wrong. In this case, I don't know if I'm necessarily wrong yet. As you guys might recall, on the trade setup that I made for this one, and this is really all about the plan in place, my stop loss was 373, that red line at the top. Well, today, we came within 15 cents of it, but we didn't break it. Now, for all intents and purposes, I should still be in this trade. If I was just short QQQ itself, I probably would have kept that trade open. However, I'm in the options on QQQ, which have time decay element to it, and I bought the expiration for next Friday. So by holding it over the weekend, I run the risk of just massive deterioration of that option because it's so close to expiration. So because of that, I got out of my triple Q option trade. If I was straight underlier and triple Qs, I would still hold this, and I would use that line in the sands of 373 as my stop loss and stick to it for better or for worse until it happened. Unless it started to fall, right? And then I would start moving my stop loss down and down and down. Kind of like with Linda, she was looking at CCL. So here's your Carnival Cruise Lines. And my suggestion yesterday when the question was brought up was, well, she bought it down here somewhere around $7, I think she said, or $9, somewhere down in here. And I said, well, you should certainly move your stop loss up and try to absorb some of that gains and keep those gains. And if it does pull back, fine, but let it run, try to let this thing run, and that's where I will be. I would have been if I was just in the QQQ underlier. Anyway, that's your first step there. By the way, I hosted trivia last night, and actually I had one OTA graduate show up. So Linda, thank you very much for showing up. That was kind of fun. I don't have that many people in here today, but I was going to do a poll, but I thought I would just ask the question of you. So I want everybody to stop what you're doing, focus on the screen. This is a pretty important trivia question. No, I didn't, Margaret. It wasn't down enough. Margaret says, did you buy the options on a down market day? No, I was actually buying directionally into the momentum. So yesterday, as the triple Qs were rallying, yesterday as the triple Qs were rallying, I was buying those put options because the premium obviously is going to be much lower as something's rallying to the upside. Unfortunately, it just kept on rallying, and then we had the jump today, so it ended up being a loser for me on that one. Oh well. Here's your trivia question for today. I was going to do more. I had 6 rounds of just really fun. I thought this was really fun trivia last night. I could always test my brain. So Thursdays is kind of my reprieve to go do. Usually I'm participating in trivia. The last 2 weeks I've actually hosted down here in Orange County. So get your keyboards all fired up. Let me know the answer to this question. We should all know this. It's kind of embarrassing. The vast majority of people don't. But don't cheat. Don't look it up. Just type in your answer. Whatever you think it is. What is the national flower of the United States of America? There you go. So type it in the chat. Curious what you guys think. What's the national flower of the United States of America? Funny because each state has one. Like I know the California one. That's really easy. It's a California poppy. The reason I remember that is when I was a kid, we had these like massive poppy field out in front of the house, right along the road, and I had to go out there and weed whack. And I was always like, am I going to go to prison? Because I'm killing like thousands of poppies here. Never went to jail for that one. So anyway, type into chat what you think the official flower of the United States is. Katie says rose. Dave says marigold. Ganja. Good one, Pepe. Maybe of California. Hey, Big Ev. Well, you got to come up with a different nickname than Big Ev's wife here. Sunflower. Good to see you, Big Ev's wife. We'll call him the famous Mrs. Ebb. How about that? We'll get to the Mrs. Ebb. Carnation, sunflower, daisy, olive branch. I know Poppy, California, where I'm from. Yep, the rose. So futures trader says the rose. Steve says must be a pansy if it was picked today. That's good. We are coming a little bit soft as a country. The peace lily, didn't even know we had one. I love it. See, sometimes I like trivia because it's just so silly, and sometimes you just don't know these things. So I'll give you a hint. A couple of you got it right, but the answer is, to think about the answer, where would you see a representation of the national flower, right? The one that represents America. You would most likely would see it at the White House, and the White House has a garden. And the garden is called the Rose Garden. Therefore, the rose is the official national flower of the United States of America. If you didn't learn anything else today, there you go. It should be the sunflower. I think the sunflower is the best one. See, if I take the sunflower as indigo, and a couple other people have said, this is not a guy question. If we take the, if you take the sunflower and you take the rose, like the rose should be much more indicative of our country. Bright, sunny, cheerful, seems always optimistic. No one gets depressed when they get a sunflower. But if you get a rose, it's like, they're beautiful, they smell great, but man, you end up getting pricked by all the thorns and everything. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there with the rose, which maybe does represent our country. Anyway, sorry, I will move away from the trivia. Just a little bit of fun to start your Friday, and maybe it's the whiskey talking, but I love trivia. Okay, let's go to your markets for today. I'll run up from the bottom to the top. We'll do our regular 8 here. Worst performer out there was the Russell 2000, which Tom, who is my yellow box fanatic, he loves the yellow boxes. He actually drew this one in here. I'm going to peel this box back just a hair so we can see the new one. Tom is saying he thinks it's going to start to look into the sideways channel here. So he's actually a spread trader who's going to be, or iron condors really, trying to play the fact that Russell may stay within this range. Today was down 0.82%, so not the best day for the Russell. Actually, honestly, all indexes suffered today, including the Dow. Here's your NASDAQ, which you say suffering, but it really is an engulfing or a Harami formation. So for those that know candlestick patterns, these last two that formed today, right here, this green one and the red one, that's actually a bearish Harami formation. And a Harami formation, I'll fudge it a little bit. It's really, those two red lines there, you're supposed to have the candle for today fit within the real body, which I'm going to fudge and let it go and say it is. So with the Harami, you've got two different choices here. I'm going to draw a red line and a blue line on here, just so you guys kind of have an idea of how to map out maybe a Monday's trading session. Now, depending on your school of thought, I've got a red line and a blue line here, and it's based off of yesterday's candle. If it breaks the open, which is that blue line, some people will go short there, or you wait for it to break the low of the Harami pattern. And by the way, Harami means pregnant in I believe it's pregnant in Japanese. So this is going to they say it will give birth to a new trend. Aha! Now, again, that's a little bit speculative, but it's one of those things that when you see a Harami pattern, in this case, it's a very bullish or very bearish Harami because it's happened after a long uptrend here. Again, I really believe we are due for a pullback, although the markets seem to be rejoicing as my traders here on Wall Street seem to be reflecting. Who knows how long this bullish market's going to go. It can't go on forever. There's going to be a pause, right? It's going to have to be a pause. Let's see. What else we got? The color rose has different meanings. Yes, it does. I learned that one the hard way in high school. Why did you give me a yellow rose? We're not friends. Oh, boy. S&P 500 was your, what are we at? We have 8 on here, so this is 5th place? 6th place. 6th place. You do have a shooting star on the S&P futures, not necessarily the SPY. Right? You'll notice there's going to be slight difference. So the SPY opened up much higher and closed lower, whereas the S&P futures are going to paint a slightly different picture, and that does have a shooting star formation, which of course is bullish. So you have a shooting star into overhead supply, looking pretty good. This is, again, boding well for a short opportunity next week, but I just didn't want to carry anything into the weekends. Gold. Gold has a lot of indecision today. Long topping tail, small bottoming tail, but closed and open right about neutral. When you zoom out in the big picture, boredom. It's kind of just been slipping sideways here. Nothing that exciting here with gold. Silver is really much more exciting. Here's your SLV. At least it's got a pop up and looks like it's going to challenge that 2250 here next week. The dollar index. Okay, a little bit of a hesitation. I actually thought that the dollar index would continue to fall. I really didn't see much stopping it until we got down to this 101.50 mark. That's kind of the next level I'm looking at. Yes, SPY is different than the ES and the SPX. For those that don't know the difference, the SPX is the actual cash index. It's not tradable. It's just, this reflects the price of all the S&P 500 components. The S&P futures, which he says the ES, that's anticipating the price of that S&P contract or S&P 500 at a certain point in the future. And then the third one was in there? The SPY is a tradable basket of securities that reflects the SPX. So they're all slightly different. Now, granted, they're going to move pretty much the same, but they're not going to be exactly the same. There'll be slight deviations amongst those indexes. All right, getting to the top. Crude oil had a nice day yesterday, continuing on with 2 big bullish days in a row. We rallied up to $72, which is a very short-term supply, although I do think you'll head back up to that yellow box we've got drawn on there, which is your supply zone from back in April of just a couple months ago. So I still think your supply zone's between 75.50 and 77. So $1.50 supply zone on crude oil, $1.58 or 1.58% move to the upside. Yes, you can trade options on the SPX because it's cash settled, but you can't buy the SPX. It's just an index. I know it seems weird. You're like, well, why can't I just buy the SPX? Because you can't. You don't buy the SPX. It's just a reference point. So what the options did is said, okay, we'll use the SPX, which is just simply a reference. Nobody owns anything because it just tracks the price. That's all. Remember, SPY actually bought each one of the components of the S&P 500 and holds it in a portfolio. So you're actually buying assets with SPY, whereas if you're doing the options on SPX, it's just tracking, just an index. Good question, though. It's a tough one. And it's a weird one. You know, the financial markets have so much weird crap that goes on, and that's one that I've always been like, well, why don't you just give me the SPX as opposed to the SPY? Well, because there is no SPX. It's just an index. All right. Anyway, last two. We've got that 10-year. So here's your 10-year for today, finishing strong at 1.32%. My guess is you'll see it start to creep up here and challenge that 382 mark that we were at just a couple days ago. Right now you're at 376 on that. So I'm sure those of you who are in the real estate market, you would love for this to continue to drop down. But it just feels like we need to be higher, especially when you look at the historical rates of the 10-year. Here's a monthly, right? So you look here, it's like, oh man, we're really high. Yeah, compared to the last 7 years, 10 years. But if you look out historically, we are way, way lower than historical norms. So, you know, depending on your perspective, we could be high right now. It actually looks like it's forming a bullish flag formation here on the 10-year on a monthly, which means more upside potential. You can trade options on SPX and it's European. Hold on, what do we got here? Why in the U.S. can't we trade CDFs? You mean CFDs, I think, commodity contracts for difference, because our government sucks and our regulators are pansies. Just as you could see by Gensler's recent comments and just his approach to the market, CFDs are really gambling. When I didn't live in London. When I lived in Milan, I worked in London, and I did an education presentation. I taught CFDs for a little bit, and it's just gambling. It's just straight gambling. You're betting against the house, and the house fudges the numbers. I went to a CFD firm, BetWin or WinBet or something like that in London, and they had these monitors that were stacked vertically, not horizontally, and they switched them, and basically they could see where every customer stops were, and they would just go, oh yeah, we'll pop it down to this price. And I was like, but the market didn't go there. They go, well, we don't have to be connected to the market prices. It's our internal prices. I'm like, man. And they were just taking out stops left and right. Total gamble. I wouldn't do it. Their NASDAQ CFDs is like Forex trading. There's a NASDAQ CFD. It's like, I don't know. I don't do anything with CFD. After I learned how they work, I was like, I'm staying away from that thing. All right, best performer on the day, about time. We had a nice little pop today in the Bitcoin price chart, 3.83% to the upside for Bitcoin. 26,445. Again, I thought we were going to drift all the way down to 24,500. So the fact that we stopped at a low of 24,700, fine. $200 off my target, great. I'm fine with that. What are your thoughts on buying some VIX futures if it gets close to 12? So if you look at VIX, you know, the closer it gets to 0, the higher probability that you have that it's going to shoot up. The closer it gets to 100, the higher probability you have that it's going to come ripping the other way. Those are like the extremes that I use. However, that said, things can remain in a trending environment for a very long time. So for those of you who are looking at the VIX simply is a put-call ratio index. It says the ratio of puts to calls on the S&P 500. That's it. So when you have all of a sudden a ton of people buying puts, that's when you get the VIX really surging to the upside. When you get a ton of people buying calls because they're optimistic, as in right now, you get the VIX drifting down, and you can see that reflected on this chart. So it's a fear gauge. And the mantra that goes along with this one is when all is When VIX is low, time to go, and when VIX is high, time to buy. So here you have VIX relatively low. I guess the question to dive deeper into GS33's question is, what is your reference point for high or low on the VIX? So I'll show you what they did historically. Historically, it's these two lines, 40 and 20. So if it was below 20, that was a low VIX reading. Remember, when VIX is low, time to go means you should sell your long positions. Well, as you can tell, it stayed below, and it looks like it's going to keep on going. If it gets to single digits, GS, that's where I would be like, okay, now's the time to go long on some of those futures, because it usually rips back. So let me go and show you. I'll put a line right at 10. I'll just do this one. I'll put the line at 10, which would reference getting into single digits. And even with that number, which we did back in 2017 and 18, it did stay down there for a while, but then ripped up. So, for me, this 2040 mark that I was taught back on the old trading floor in the late 90s, I don't know. I think it's archaic. I don't use it anymore. I don't trade the VIX personally. I don't trade any of the VIXX or the derivative ones or none of that stuff. Unfortunately, just not for me. Never really got into it. But the percentage moves can be absolutely extremes. Put up SPY on that chart together? Certainly. Let's go and see if it actually allows me to do that. Let's go SPY. And so Margaret asked for, let's look at the S&P 500 chart on top of the VIX. So what you're going to get is like a Rorschach. They should be pretty much the opposite, right? It's going to be when one goes up, the other one goes down. That's typically what it's going to look like, with minor exceptions. Let's go SPY. Why is it not giving me? There we go. That's what I want. Okay. So we add on the VIX here, and it's just doing it by percentage. That's not going to work. Yeah, that's not going to work for us. I don't know how I get the actual price charts, but based off this, because you see the S&P rallying up here, so like moving to the upside, you're seeing that VIX fall because no one's looking to buy puts right now. They're all buying calls. Everyone's buying calls and trying to move up to the upside. If we get a nice hook down here, what you're going to see is that VIX surge, which I think is why GS asked that. What about buying that VIX? Look, if you think that the markets are going to sell off, as I do, and I don't think we're going to crash. I think we're going to have a pullback, right? When we have the moves like we've had recently, a pullback is just natural. If you think that's going to happen, and let's say I expect the S&P to, let's see what I would expect the S&P to pull back. All right, so let me get that off the chart there. We'll bring up SPY just for fun. Okay, I'm looking at this price chart. For me, it would seem very logical to have a pullback in the S&P that would go back to this previous area of consolidation, which I would say is right about there. All right. That's by no means extreme. That's a very mild pullback. That's just a breather, right? That would be, we'll call it 2.5% from this level. Well, if you look at the that pullback of 2.5%, that move in the VIX would probably equate to like a 20 or 30% pop in the VIX. You're going to get much more bang for your buck leverage-wise, firepower-wise, if you are trading that VIX. But it's so volatile. It's one of those things that it can come back and bite you right away. So I personally am not doing it. But again, if you think this market's going to tank next week or next couple weeks, then yeah, go long on the VIX and ride it out. But boy, you better have some intestinal fortitude, because that thing is crazy. You have 20, 30% days in the VIX that, if you're on the wrong side of it, pretty dangerous. That said, given the current rally in the S&P 500, do you really think you're going to see a significant crash or a significant rally from this point, like a huge pop? I don't know. I don't think you're going to get a monumental run from here. It might drift higher, but I don't see it just vaulting higher, which means going long the VIX is probably a relatively safe way to go. Not sure if that would work, actually. Let's see. Let me go back here. What are your thoughts on buying some VIX futures? Okay, we already did that one. Heard it slightly different on VIX. When it's low and turns up, time to go. When it's high and turns down, time to buy. Yeah, that's the more refined version, believable. Definitely. That's the right way to do it, because if you look at this chart of the VIX and you say when VIX is low, time to go. Let me bring up VIX again. Hold on. If you say VIX is low, time to go, my measurement there is, well, what's your opinion of low? What's low, right? Historically, as I mentioned, your textbooks would say 20 is low. All right, well, if you shorted it because it went below there, done. It's you're still holding this thing and you're getting smoked. Whereas if you wait for the turn up, you would have gotten in maybe here recently, a couple days ago. I I think that you wait for extremes. It's kind of like using Bollinger Bands or RSI or stochastics, right? It's not about the normal price action. It's about the extremes of price action. And in this case, to GS's point, down below 12, I think you're probably okay. I think you'll probably be fine below 12 if you get there, right? We'd have to have another couple bullish days, but remember, you're right at supply right now. VIX might be a great play for Monday. If it was something I could trade and I felt comfortable with, I actually would have gone and bought some of the VIX and taken over the weekend, because I do think you're going to see the market sell off next week a little bit. Keep in mind, next week we have Wednesday and Thursday are going to be really interesting days. You guys may know Jerome Powell speaking at Senate Subcommittee for the Banking Commission, and he's reading a pre-written script for the beginning of that. Right, so probably 5-10 minutes where he reads a pre-read document that you can all download from the Fed's website. Then it's 2 days of getting grilled with unscripted questions from senators. And as we've seen, Jerome Powell, he's very good when he reads from a script. But as soon as he goes off that, it's off. He's wonky sometimes. He'll say something. You can almost see in his face where you're like, oh, damn it, I shouldn't have said that. So prepare yourselves Wednesday and Thursday for some significant volatility. If you're an active trader, like a day trader, it would be in your best interest to watch that speech live and see where usually they stream it on YouTube. Just sit there and watch it live. Turn off CNBC, turn off that garbage, put on whatever station's broadcasting that testimony live, because one word from his mouth can cause this market to jump 3, 4, 5%. No problem. Let's see what else I got here. Oh, Mr. Blotzer, yeah. When VIX is low, look out below is what I heard. And that's the same thing, right? When VIX is low, that means that people have no cares in the world. And when people don't have a care, that's usually when things start to fall. So we were all saying the same thing with a slightly different verbiage. No worries. Okay, let me go. I had a couple of questions here. Let me run through these real quick. This is a little bit more psychological one. When is that Jerome speech? I believe it's at 10 a.m. Eastern time on Wednesday and Thursday. And I don't know how long it is. Usually it's a couple of hours. But that's right in the heart of the day. Markets open at 9:30 Eastern time, and I think he starts at 10 o'clock on Wednesday and Thursday. So that's your 2. The markets close on Monday to celebrate. Yeah. Yes. Let me 100% verify. I want to see, because sometimes the bond market's open, sometimes future market's open, so let me just see what we have here. But yeah, for Juneteenth, it's closed. Yeah, it's closed for Juneteenth. I'm trying to find if the other markets are closed. Sometimes it'll tell me on this list what one's closed, but the equity markets are closed. I can't see here if the options or if the futures and other markets are closed, but usually they are. All right, let's go to, there you go, off work. Well, that doesn't mean the markets are closed. All right, this is kind of a philosophical one, and I'm not going to do a long show today because I've got whiskey in hand and I've got beer I need to drink later on as well, so I'm going to go celebrate. All right, bootleggers it is. Jeremy says, I'm really good. This is a good one. I love this question. I'm really good at deciding when to get out of my longer-term retirement investments before a major pullback, but I find it difficult deciding when to get back in and how much to get back in with. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I cannot figure out why it's so much more difficult for me to get back into the markets. I'm sure a lot of it has to do with fear of losing, but I struggle balancing that with FOMO. It's exactly, you know the problem, Jeremy. I know you know it. You kind of said it there at the end. So the main, one of the most significant problems that I would say traders, novice, and even veteran traders have is the old let winners run and cut your losses short. So in this case, you got winners in your retirement account, and you're loving it. You're like, yeah, I'm making money. And you're like, I'm going to get out. It's going to turn. And when it turns, you feel vindicated. You're like, yeah, did the right thing. There's other times where it just keeps on going. Remember, the markets are biased to go up over time, right? They're designed to go up over time. Whereas if you are catching that falling knife, I think what your brain is saying to yourself is, and when I say catching a falling knife, something is selling off, it's drifting down, you're like, okay, I want to buy it. And you're going to pull the trigger, but you're like, it's going to keep on going lower. I want to buy it cheaper. Look, you're never going to pick the bottom. If you do, you got lucky, buy yourself a lotto ticket. But, in my career, like to the penny, like literally to the penny, I've bought the bottom or sold the top like 3 times. And I've made, I wouldn't say a million trades, but that might be a slight exaggeration, but it's definitely in the hundreds of thousands of trades I've made since 1998. Mind you, I was doing 550 trades a day, so I can use numbers that big. But as far as trying to pick the dead bottoms, not going to happen. With you in that situation with your retirement account, you need to look at that price chart and go, okay, is this a point that I'm comfortable holding it long term, right? So let's say I'm see if I can find an example of the chart so you don't have to look at my ugly mug. Let's go to, I'm just going to bring up something else. How about natural gas? Since natural gas, I sold calls against my position of UNG today. But, here's your chart of natural gas. And let's say you're a long-term investor and you're going, well, I don't want to buy UNG right now because I think it's going to go lower. It's the summertime. Natural gas doesn't really use that much. It's already beaten down, but I think it's going to go lower. Okay, well, you could wait and hold off, but you might miss this move. So for me, I bought UNG because I thought that this $2 floor I think is pretty significant. I'm not worried about it breaking the $2 floor. So, right around 220, 225, somewhere in there. I don't remember exact entry price. I'll say 225 because it was couple weeks ago. I'm long from 225. Now, I'm not worried about picking the dead bottom because I'm pretty sure it's not going to go below $2. Therefore, I'm okay to take a little bit more risk. Whereas in your situation, I think a lot of it has to do with, people, you think it's going to keep going lower. Hey, Joachim, thank you very much. You just bought me a beer and a half at Bootleggers. That's going to get consumed tonight. So thank you very much. Cheers to you, Joachim, and for all your support. Honestly, Joachim, I don't know how you do it. Joachim is there for every digital asset session I do. Was there for all the CILs, XLT general sessions. You got to be getting bored with me, man. You got to be getting bored with me. Oh, so the futures halt at noon. Okay, so it's a half day. Thanks, Margaret. I knew the equity markets are closed, but futures are always seem to be a little weird market timing there. So am I legit now? Yes. Big Ab, you're there. Your prediction was sent in. I saw the email. You're good to go. You're on the list. Put you in there, buddy. So, to Jeremy's point, you just got to say, am I comfortable buying it here? With this chart of natural gas, could natural gas go lower? Sure, of course it could. But what's the probability? There's a cost to extract it. And if it gets down below 2, which is the number I've heard from almost every natural gas trader I've heard of, that 2 is not going to get below 2. If it does, it'll be barely below it, and then it's going to rip back up. I felt good with that for the long haul. So, I don't know if that answers your question, Jeremy, but you just got to come up to yourself with a price that you say, okay, I'm good with this. I'm happy to own it here. Let's go to, let's see if there's another one here. Not KLA Tencor, that's chips. How about Ford's? Everything's ripping right now. Oh, Ford's right at overhead supply too. Woo, lordy, Ford. How about AT&T? Okay. I'm not a fan of AT&T. I don't see myself ever buying AT&T, but just to do the example for Jeremy, let's say that you did the fundamentals and you thought that this was a good company. Do you buy it right now? Well, if you felt that this was something you're going to hold long term, then go ahead and buy it, right? Just make sure you have a number where you say, okay, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Put your stop loss down here somewhere and move on. I think that you hear me hammer all the time about trade plan and writing things down and having your rules in place. I think that's probably the most important part to you here, Jeremy, is just saying, all right, I would like to buy this when it gets down to here. And if it does, you buy it. And you set your timeline, I'm going to hold it for this long or for these reasons, and here's my stop losses. And don't get emotional about it. If it breaks your stop loss, you can always buy back in lower, and that's just the cost of doing business. If it's a really long-term hold and you're like, this is something I'm going to hold for a decade, then don't worry about it, right? If you look at the charts of banking stocks going back into the 2008 lows, like Warren Buffett, man, might have made the trade of the century. Let me go to a weekly here so you guys can see. Let's go to the lows of 2008, right? So right here, this is Bank of America. $56 stock, $40 stock, 30, 20, 10, 5. I mean, this thing was getting absolutely murdered, right? Warren Buffett steps up and goes, this is Bank of America. Not going away. The banking system isn't done. Bank of America is not going to disappear. It's too big to fail. So what did Warren Buffett do? Warren Buffett bought billions of dollars worth of Bank of America stock, but because he bought so much, he actually went to the directors of the company and said, I want warrants as well, because I'm essentially going to help your stock stop from falling. With my purchase, I'm going to put in a bottom for your stock. And they gave him warrants, which allowed him to buy a whole bunch more at $5. And you look at what happened with Bank of America from that point. I'll zoom in like this. All of a sudden, I mean, he looks like an absolute genius. Well, it helps when you got billions of dollars that you can throw around. Ooh, did it go back down? There you go. No, we did double bottom a couple years later, but you know, he's looking pretty good with his holding. I don't think he holds it anymore. Anyway, you just find a level you're comfortable with if you're a long-term investor and go with it. Michael, you always like these dividend stuff. Michael's definitely a dividend penny stock kind of guy. So Alliance Resource Group, it always says ARLP is coal, which pay a dividend of 70 cents each quarter, and the chart's looking good. I'd actually, let me go back here. The chart is looking a lot better, right? You've got a pretty decent looking chart, although I think it's rallied a bit too much. My goodness gracious. This is a weekly time frame, but let me just see what that gain is from those lows here in 2020. From 2020 to its peak in 2022, you're talking 700% gain for a coal company. You know, as much as I personally won't buy coal, I just think that there's a lot of other alternative stuff that might be better. Now, the 70-cent dividend might be fine, but again, I'm not a fan of buying dividend. I don't buy stocks based off the dividend. Dividends are fine, it's great, but I would look at a dividend as like an added bonus. So I'm trying to come up with a simple example here, but you know, a lot of times you go to the liquor store and you buy like a bottle of Jack Daniels or something, and it gives you, you get these 2 free shot glasses. I'm not buying the Jack Daniels for the 2 free shot glasses. It's an added bonus. So for me, the dividends are the added bonus here. I'm going to buy something that looks like it has upside potential. Now, if your thoughts on coal are that coal's going to do well and there's upside potential there, then great. You know, this chart does look really good on this weekly time frame. Question is, you know, are we going to stop here at this lower demand zone that's kind of coming into right now around $17? If it does, then you might see the next leg out. But really, on this monthly going all the way back into August of 2022, this thing's been down for, 10 months in a row. So not looking so good now, right? The chart did look good. If you go to the daily, this looks bad, right? I would not want to buy this. And again, this goes right back to Jeremy's question about when do you buy something after it's pulled back? And that's up to each individual person. So yeah, the dividend might be nice. So you can see, it should give you the dividend in here. Nope, not gonna give you the dividend there. Oh, that's right next to it. So yeah, 70-cent dividend, great. Well, that's awesome. At a certain point, if this chart keeps drifting down, they'll cut that dividend. Exactly. I gotta drink at the unless you're in San Francisco, man. I tell you what, my buddy works in San Francisco, and every day he posts a video. It's something out of like Resident Evil, where just zombies all over the place. Really, just absolutely crazy. So, I personally, I'm not a fan of this ARLP. Just because I don't think coal is the future. I think that coal is going to start to get phased out, even though it's the heartblood of America for a long time. You know what else was the heartblood of America? When America was discovered, there was a specific crop that basically all plantation owners were growing. Almost everybody in the United States was growing this plant, hemp. They were all growing hemp because if hemp wasn't there, America would never have been discovered. It was the oil for the sails on Columbus's ship. It was the material for his made of hemp cloth. The oils for the decks, the lanterns, all that stuff was from hemp. So when we got here to the U.S. and landed, it's like grow hemp because that's our industrial crop. Of course, with the reefer madness hoopla that went on, that caused people to kind of move away from it, and now it's banished and just starting to get back up. So certain things, industries will change over time, and I think coal is one of those. Cotton's another one. Yeah, no, his sales weren't cotton. The ropes and stuff were hemp. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's one of the most useful plants in the world. I did a report for this when I was in college. It was a presentation class, and at the beginning of the class, I held up this sign. It was a cannabis leaf. And it was great. There was this one mom in the front row, and her eyes rolled back. And I go, anybody know what this is? And she's like, that's a marijuana leaf. I don't want to sit here and have to be a presentation about marijuana. I was like, I'm talking about hemp. You know what that is? She's like, no. It's like, well, it's the same thing as marijuana, but it just doesn't have the THC in it, right? It doesn't have the psychoactive ingredients. But its utility. If you took a state the size of Colorado and grew from border to border nothing but hemp and used that for energy generation, it would offset 100% of all the nuclear energy consumption in the world. That was a crazy statistic that I've read. Anyway, enough for the history lessons. Let's go. finish, I think, one more question, and this is for Scott. Scott asked, is natural gas about to pop? I don't think natural gas is about to pop. Oop, there's your question from Scott. I don't think it's about to pop. I bought it a couple weeks back because I feel like it's going to base and bottom here, and I feel long-term I'm going to be okay holding UNG. Now, I'm not getting into BOIL, which is going to be that triple leveraged one that we got smoked on a while back. I'm going to go with UNG. Now, there's a problem with UNG. It's a rolling contract, right? So the forward contracts are already much higher than the current ones. So it's not going to have a monster move, but I do think you'll see it start to drift up. I'll probably hold these through to the end of the year, which would give me, I do think you could see this easily get back up to that $10 mark, but that'll probably take by the end of the year. It was Rockefeller that really pushed for prohibition and much. Yep. Steve, it's interesting. Rockefeller pushed for it, but who's another really interesting one? William Randolph Hearst. So William Randolph Hearst owned a lot of railroad stocks and timber companies because he was using timber for all his papers because William Randolph Hearst, publishing giant. So you're using wood pulp to make paper, but all of a sudden people are documented that a tree takes years to grow where hemp can just take a few months. And if you do it in quantity, it'll far surpass the productivity of any tree in existence. And that would have wrecked his shares of stock. So you started seeing more and more propaganda against hemp, against cannabis, and hopefully we'll decriminalize this thing on a federal level and maybe get back to a point where we actually have hemp farms because the utility of hemp is just incredible. There's almost nothing that you can't do with it, from cloth to oils to paints to they're making hemp bricks for houses, right? Don't worry, if your house catches fire, you don't get high. There's no THC in it. It's just a lot of smoke. Anyway, I'm moving on. I think I'm going to wrap it up here because I want to go to the brewery. I want to make sure I get my good seat over there as I usually do. So that's going to do it for today. I will wrap things up with a little cheers. I'm almost done with my whiskey as well. But anyway, I hope you guys had a great trading week. Come Monday, I will be hopefully seeing some markets sell off because I have a lot of money I need to allocate to positions. But unless there's a big sell-off, I'm probably not going to be selling puts. We'll see what happens on Monday, but I'll let you guys know if there's any new positions that I open up. Margaret says, where is the most hemp grown? I don't know. I don't know that one. I remember when I was in college, my dad presented me with there was initiatives by different countries in Africa to promote growth of farmers, right? They wanted farmers to come to Africa. And I was like, it doesn't need a lot of water and is impossible to kill. Like if you try to grow tomatoes, you try to grow different crops, it's so hard. You get all the pests and parasites. It's tough. Anybody here's ever tried to grow cannabis or hemp, it's literally a weed. You just literally put it in the ground, give it some water. There's no native bug that's going to tear it apart. You throw it in a pulping mill anyway. So what an easy one. I was going to try to do that to go and start up a farm in Africa, but we decided not to. Anyway, yes, Juneteenth. I won't be doing a show on Monday. Juneteenth, we're going to take that day off. So I hope you guys are going to do something enjoyable that day. Don't trade. Take it off. It'll be a light day for the futures market as well since half day. But equity markets will be closed, which means we'll do a show on Tuesday. I'm going to try to bring, fingers crossed, I'm going to try to bring Bill Addis in the program to see what his thoughts are on the latest rate pause and what that might mean. And again, Bill is so entrenched in these numbers. I don't know. I see the frontline stuff, and I know a little bit of the back end. But Bill knows all little nuances of what really happened on the back end and the different rate adjustments that have happened. So hopefully I can get him on next week. That's my goal. So thank you guys very much. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, as many of you did, send in your questions at TraderMerlin@gmail.com. And I will get to those or put them down below any of the YouTube videos, and I will answer those on our Tuesday show. Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend. Cheers, everybody. Do something fun.